Welcome to episode 27 of Venti Questions, the show with friends, coffee, and conversation. My name's Michael.
And I'm Chris, and today we're talking about expectations of a father. Society views fatherhood differently and has over the years. What do we think about it?
Well, make sure you listen all the way till the end to find out.
What's new with you?
Well, I don't necessarily know if it's new with me as much as what's new with the situation that I'm following, if that makes any sense.
Let's hear it.
So, obviously, I'm what you would call a nerd.
No.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe.
No.
Am I wearing a D&D shirt?
You
I
are.
am.
Yeah,
Wow.
I stared at it as soon as you said nerd.
That's on brand, because what I was about to talk about was the whole controversy over the OGL right now.
Oh.
Which is, topical. Anyway.
Yeah. By the way, when you giggle, you're basically rolling a die.
Well, I know, but I always roll natural 20s because I'm loaded.
Wow. Venti.
Anyway. Wow.
Wow.
It's like a circle. It all comes back. No, so basically what's going on right now, I know you've talked about this a little bit while we're not recording, but the open gaming license that Dungeons and Dragons has had for this entire tenure of 5th edition.
Yeah.
They are trying to come up with a changed new version of it for the new 1 D&D that's going to be coming out, I think, in 2024, I think is when it comes out. And it will theoretically be revoking the current OGL, which directly affects anybody who makes any type of content that's based off of it. And nowadays, because of the interwebs and all that kind of stuff, there's at least a couple hundred people, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's pretty decent when you're talking about how small of a community it is, that this is their livelihood. Is they just make stuff they sell on like Patreons, and then they sell on like Kickstarter and stuff like that. That not only could they lose the ability to continue to do that, but they could also lose the right to be able to even like redo some of the stuff they've already done.
Interesting.
There's a lot of controversy going over the whole situation, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not super like reading every single line of it, but the controversy itself is pretty crazy. The whole thing was very like cloak and dagger. Like they sent out this finger quotes draft, as they called it, to a bunch of like the high-end creators and companies with an NDA saying, hey, you can't talk about this. You have 1 week to sign it, and if you don't sign it, then you won't be able to do anything. Like you can't use any of our stuff.
Wow. Strong-handed.
Yeah. And it was a very, very like predatory contract. And that's why it's so funny is they're saying it was a draft. It's like drafts don't have 14 pages of official legal jargon and then a place for a signature. And so one of those people decided to leak it to a news outlet.
Whoa.
Which they I'm very surprised that it hasn't come out yet who did it. Because if it does, they're totally getting but then it just spread like wildfire. As soon as people found out about it, they went crazy. And now there's the huge issue of how D&D responded. The way that they originally responded was with this like, hey guys, it's all good type of post that was very, very gaslighty, which I don't even like using that word that much, but like it was perfectly like the way they were phrasing, they were trying to change the narrative so much. The way that like they would, like the situation, like I said, it was a leaked situation of the files. And so the way that they phrased it in their apology was, the reason why we released this draft to the community, and it's like, you didn't. What are you talking about? And then the biggest thing was near the end of the thing, they put, while some people are going to say that they won and we lost, that's only half true. You won and so did we. Because they're trying to say that, hey, we're all part of this one community and it's all like, we're all trying to be on the same team.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that is like Netflix movie creepy level.
I don't know.
Yeah, it was very annoying.
That PR team really just took a hit on the chin.
Oh yeah, no. The biggest issue is that from what people are stating that have like finger quotes insider knowledge, is that it all comes down to the D&D team, development team. There's some awesome people in there, and like they're still trying to like, run the game. Sure. And then their execs are like pretty decent, and like they're trying to be, they're still execs. But then it goes to Wizards of the Coast people who are like, a little bit more money hungry. And then it goes to Hasbro, who owns all of these people. And they don't give a crap about anything but numbers.
Of course.
So, yeah, it's a really sad situation. But the positive, and the reason why I guess I kind of would bring it up, is because it has caused a lot of side effects. Now, one of the biggest competitors to D&D, which is Paizo, is creating their own gaming license thing, which is going to be like epic. I'm not even going into it because it's crazy. And a lot of these third-party companies that have been making supplements for 5e are now creating their own gaming systems. So it'll be interesting. It's going to kind of flood the market regardless of the outcome of this. There's already so many companies that have already said, hey, we don't care even if you say, hey, takes backsies, we're not going to change anything. They just don't trust them anymore. Yeah. So they're still doing their own thing. So it'll be interesting to have some new stuff.
What's the problem? Corporate greed.
100%.
Corporations, man, you never know.
It's a sad thing. It starts off usually as a couple of people with a great idea, and then they get really nice and big pockets full of monies, and they forget all about their ideals.
Yeah.
But
they sit on the stack of ideas so far away removed from people that are executing the ideas enjoying.
They don't even know what the heck they're doing anymore.
Yeah, sad.
So, but what's new with you, bro?
Nothing too crazy. Just been on this reading kick lately. Talked about that a little bit last podcast, but I think I mentioned this to you casually before, but I mentioned it to my wife as well. Really want to jump back into reading some of the classics, just classic novels that I either didn't get a chance to read or didn't care about when I was younger to read. All the typical ones you'd hear about and we're like, oh yeah, that, and like Frankenstein, and like I've read Frankenstein, but it's been years, right? And Dracula and like any of those, but Animal Farm or War of the Worlds, like any of those older science fiction books that like tons of movies they've remade like 3-4 times. I'd love to just read the original. A lot of the reason why I hadn't, because they've already made a movie by the time I was old enough to get my hands on the book, or didn't know it was a book first, right? And saw the movie and like, oh yeah, that's right. So, H.G. Wells or anything like that, right? And there's a lot of cool stories that I just want to experience and read just for the literature. And then I want to obviously create a little bit of a library, with those. So, have them on the shelf as a collector, someone who likes to collect. It'd be cool to kind of just, get them and just have all the classics just sitting there. So my kids get a little older, maybe they're curious about it. They want to grab a book off the shelf, or I recommend one, or whatever that is. Having books around and having, some of those stories around, right there, easy for them to grab and get into if they're interested in that. Great. If they're not, that's fine. I want to encourage, but I also don't want them to hate reading because I'm going to say, read this book. Don't come out of your room until you read at least 3 chapters. Like I'll quiz you on it. Like that's not how it's going to be. But I want them to see that books are a normal part of, life, put in the house or whatever, and maybe they'll get into it on their own just by being around it.
Yeah.
So.
No, I'm with you on the whole bookcase thing. My biggest problem is just that I'm an Audible junkie.
Yeah.
You know how like a lot of the like music apps send you like the end of the year wrap up and like all the stats.
Yeah.
I read 58 books last year.
Nice.
Which means that it's a little tiny bit more than one book a week.
It's more as someone read them to you.
Same difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, you got the content.
Yeah.
Right.
No, but it's just like, imagine what I think it was 50, it was either 56 or 58, I don't remember, books would look like. That's an entire like normal size, like IKEA bookshelf.
Sure.
And it's just like, so many of those are only an Audible like exclusive thing. Because like, once again, I would love to have like a nice thing for it, because and that's just like last year, and the year before that was around the same as well. And then there's all of my nerd stuffs as far as like books for different gaming type things and things of that nature too.
Oh yeah.
I eventually would have a nice like Beauty and the Beast style rolling ladder style libraries if I could just get hard copies. So
yeah,
it'll happen eventually. One of my thought processes is to make like not false covers, but basically like 3D printable books.
Yeah.
Maybe put like a little SD card in there that has the book on
Audible
on it.
or audiobook. Yeah.
So
yeah, that's cool.
That's cool. What's we drinking today, bro?
We're drinking coffee today.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Was there more information, perhaps?
It's a dark roast.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It usually only comes out at night.
Oh, when it comes out at night?
Yeah.
So it's like a nocturnal roast?
Like a nocturnal roast. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Like, Batman.
Oh. Yeah. So we're doing Dark Knight roast.
We're doing the Dark Knight roast.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
Comics on Coffee.
Comics on Coffee, a Fort Myers, Florida company.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. Again, with this week, cream and sugar is a must for this particular roast.
We started off the podcast. It's like, oh, no cream and sugar, and like you got to have it in its rawest form to really. And then we kind of changed a little bit where we still test it and taste it black, but we do now try it with cream and sugar for that second cup to give it a fair shot.
Well, see, I think that's the biggest issue. Is it's not that my opinion on black coffee and being able to really taste it in its best and truest form has changed. It's that the quality of its best and truest form that so many people are offering up is so subpar that the only way that we can give it even a passable grade is by adding other things to it.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say nicely is it's all right.
I rated it better than you did.
Yes, which is a first.
Yeah.
So in its non-edited black coffee form, we actually both gave it a 20.
Yeah.
Which is, kind of crappy. It's like a one beaner right there.
Yeah.
But then with cream and sugar, I gave it a 54 and you gave it a 56. No, I'm sorry. It was a 56 and a 58.
Yeah. No, was it?
Yeah, you're 2 above me.
I thought you were 2 and I was 6 or something like that. Or
no, because you're just 1 above. Because your drinkability was slightly higher.
I would know if my pen didn't die in the middle of writing a score.
Yeah. And if you're interested to see how that whole process went, make sure you check out the video of our tasting of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Overall,
underwhelming.
Okay. Yeah, it really was. Because here's the thing is that I think both of us were actually really excited about that just because it was an officially branded DC comic, like a coffee. And then it was just like, oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have here for you, good sir, a few questions. Would you rather that are Father's Day related? I know it's not Father's Day, but you'd be surprised how hard it is to find would you rather questions themed around fathers. Do you know how easy it is to find them themed around mothers?
Probably easy.
Yeah. And I looked at some of them thinking like, oh, well, there were both parents that should be easily interchangeable. No, it's very not. It's very wine centric. Not like whining, like drinking wine.
Oh.
It was very weird. So I got a couple for you.
Self-medicate to deal with children.
It was really like, to me, it was almost insulting. It's like, you think that mothers just want to drink all day and they hate their own children? Like, what are you trying to say here, people? So anyway,
only sometimes.
The first one here is, would you rather stay up late or sleep in late?
You do both, don't you?
Well, no, we do both. But that's what's known as lighting the candle or burning the candle at both ends.
Oh, okay.
So basically, let's say you had 3 days off, right? On that second day, are you going to stay up really late and then sleep in? Or are you going to... Oh, sorry. Are you going to...
Yeah.
Are you going to sleep... go to sleep really late and then still get up like normal? Or are you going to go to sleep like normal and just sleep longer?
Yeah, that one.
Really? Yeah, see, I don't know, man. I'm more of a nighttime person.
I'm going to stay up late.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to sleep in.
I'm going to sleep at some point in time just because my body's going to just go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you rather spend a day playing video games or playing board games? Think about it.
Video games.
Interesting. That's only because we haven't finished Coin Car. Grand Prix. Anyway.
Coin Car Grand Prix.
Oh, yeah, we came up with a name for our game. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Copyright. I honestly would actually rather do board games. Personally.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I do play video games all day sometimes, but it's only because it's much more difficult to find people to play board games because you have to be in like actually physically the same place usually.
It's because they're usually bored by playing them.
And we're moving right along. Would you rather learn how to fly or learn how to sail a boat?
Fly.
Here's the thing. I feel like flying would be much more practical and very helpful, but a lot more dangerous. And therefore, I'm going to go with the boat.
Yeah, fly.
Yeah, that's fair. I don't like heights that much.
If you know how to fly, it wouldn't be a problem.
Would you rather have a giant duck feet or have a giant duck bill?
What do these do with fatherhood?
It's something you ask your father on Father's Day, apparently. I didn't have a father, so I didn't know what to do on that day.
I mean, you picked the question, so it makes sense.
But, man, you should have taken over for this one.
I didn't know.
Yeah. You going to answer the question?
Feet? I could put them in shoes. Bill, you're just stuck with the thing. Like,
it's still funny.
How do you
That's all that matters. All right, I got one.
How about you? You didn't.
Oh, I'm totally taking the feet.
Yeah,
100%.
You waddle anyway.
That's harsh. All right, so I got one last one for you. Would you rather go golfing or go to a baseball game?
Golfing.
Yeah, me too. Which, by the way, we need to freaking go golfing.
Yeah.
I think most of our like physical ailments since the last time we played have like healed up.
Until we golf, and then
we'll both have bad backs again.
His shoulder.
That'll be just so much fun. We'll get new injuries because now it's like, what, 5-10 years later?
Yeah, we're old.
Oh, gosh. All right. So I did a little digging, which once again was a little sparse, if nothing better way of saying it, on information. And I was able to find a couple of different little like key points over the last couple centuries of what the expectations for a father were.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So in the colonial time period, the father was held directly responsible for any of their children, in the sense that if the children didn't turn out well, it was the father's fault.
Right.
It was not the mother's fault,
Right.
like people think nowadays, which is still unfair. But it was 100%. No, because I don't think it's any one parent's fault. In my personal opinion, I think it's both.
You're hearing a lot, and I agree with you, but yes, the mother's fault, but you hear a lot of like, oh, well, if the father was, stuff now.
I'm getting there.
Ooh,
Yeah.
more to come.
Yes. But that was how, like I said, it was what they're saying during like the colonial period.
Right.
During the 19th century, kind of changed a little bit. So during the industrialization aspect of it, because of the requirement to have to like go and work for somebody, the dynamic changed a little bit, as the father was then expected to become the breadwinner, mother was expected to stay home, and because of that, it really took the father's role in the child rearing and really diminished it, because they were expected to work from, a lot of examples use the phrase from dawn till dusk. So that kind of went meh a little bit. Then this past century, right, is when it kind of balanced a little bit. Now, the couple of articles I did find kind of alluded to the aspect of what caused this was the feminist movement.
Okay.
Because all of a sudden there was a very large amount of critiquing against the absence of the fathers, because they were choosing work over family, which then caused a much more, like 50-50 co-parenting type of situation, right? Which I think kind of speaks on what you were saying.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's a little bit different, where now it's a much more, what was the phrase? I don't want to say it incorrectly. Yes. Today, the role of the father is struggling with new notions of manhood.
What's it like to be a man?
Yeah.
What is it?
So
what does
basically, the thought process now is for there to be a very gentle, free emotional father figure to the children, to explain that, hey, it's cool to cry, it's okay.
Yeah. So I would say that fatherhood, probably it evolved from that first thing you're saying, where fathers are the one to, are solely responsible.
Head of household.
It's a reflection, right? On them if their children turn out a certain way, right? So there's the pressure there. And then that shifted a little bit. The role went to the mother a little bit, because the mothers were staying home with the kids. Men were gone all day working. But I think if you just combine,
I just want to clarify it. The difference was that the men and women were all working originally, but they were working usually at their own, like, homestead.
Yeah, correct.
And then they had to then start working for somebody else, which is what made them have to go away.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're at a farm, or they're, whatever they're producing. That makes sense, because they're, the children are now being supervised by the father. Now,
Right.
Father not there, father off working for someone else, and mother having to step in on more of that full-time with kids role, making it kind of unequal in terms of time with them, right? So
Absolutely.
that shifts a little bit. So the expectations are that the mother takes a little bit more of that role as the disciplinary, someone who's going to discipline the kids, someone who's going to teach the kids, take care of them, so on and so forth. So, but I think then it kind of combined, right? Now it's like women started going to work,
Yep.
right? You see the feminist movement.
Yep.
Women started going to work as well. And you said the 50-50. Now it's like you share with, raising the kids 50-50. That's tough too, right? Because now the kid is essentially being raised by half of both parents, but also by someone else, by a school or whatever it is, right? They're not there. They're not in the home. It's less time with the kids. So it's interesting that that today, like struggling with what the notions of manhood is and what the ideal father is because it did have to switch essentially, but it's kind of swung back to the father is getting blamed again, it seems, not blamed, but like the role of the father, if the father isn't a good father, finger quotes,
Right.
then it looks, they are to blame, I guess you could say, right? So if either the father is not around, right, or the father isn't supportive emotionally, then it ruins the kid and it ruins the household, right? There's a reason why they say daddy issues. Whenever speaking about, especially with daughters, right? You hear that term a lot, right? Of people with daddy issues. A lot of pressure there is on the father in that role. So when you're talking about expectations of a father, what are those? Because people have a blended perception from historically, like, should I do this? What's the role of father? Oh, I'm the breadwinner. People still have that in their minds. A lot of people, especially in this country, still have that in their mind. It's kind of phasing into this other more new age, parenting style of being their emotional support or even stay-at-home fathers, right? And as mothers are kind of in the workforce and they switch those roles, and that's unique and that's different. So I think that's what's challenging what's manhood, right? And what that notion is of, we associate fatherhood with manhood and being strong, but I think it's shifting from that now, at least the societal narrative, right? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I agree with some of the stuff you said, and I disagree with other things. So, pretty-ish. I think the biggest thing is more. It's a weird observation that I have, right? So, a lot of times in public opinion, I guess you would say, fathers are looked at more as like a unnecessary third party type situation, right?
Sure.
Second class parent, right?
Yeah.
And yet, the first thing to blame for a child turning out a particular way is, oh, well, the father wasn't there. Well, if they're a piece of crap and they're not needed, then why is it that if they're not there, you have a bad outcome? It's like you can't have both.
No, actually,
and that's what's so confusing.
Statistically,
well, I understand. No, stats are with us that you need both parents.
Yeah, but stats are actually on the side of the father.
Yeah.
If you look, I don't know if you happen to find that, but if you look into it, when you're looking at outcome of a child, if you're looking at a single mother raising the kid, they did like the statistics of like where the kid ends up in terms of like more likely to go to prison or more likely to commit crime, so on and so forth. It's more like that's the highest, right? Single mother. That's where that's I think the highest statistic of where, kids end up in a bad situation, right?
Right.
Then they look at mother and father in a household. That is okay. It's better, right? That's a pretty good situation. But what's even better is a single father raising a child. So a single father raising a child, statistically, it's better than a single mother raising a child. That's interesting. I don't know why. I'm not trying to say one's better than the other. Don't misquote me on that. But that is what's been proven through statistics, right?
Well, like I said, the
structure, I think, would be what's perceived as structure, or maybe more firm. if we're really looking at the gender stereotypes of nurture versus this is the way it is, you know,
Right.
They attribute it to that in some way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Following rules or, you know, that kind of thing.
Right. The biggest thing with expectations is obviously it comes to basically like what the can't think of the word I'm looking for here, but like kind of like the cultural thought process.
Sure.
Right. So it's what you perceive to be the proper thing. What do you see in your media? What do you see in like your neighborhood and so on and so forth? So there can be a lot of different thought process of what a good father is, depending on where you live and what you watch. Right. So like me growing up, obviously I didn't have a father at all, but me growing up, you know, I watch TV. I've seen a couple movies. So you see like what the, nuclear family, mom, dad, one son, one daughter.
Yeah.
And you see how that interacts, right?
Right.
And then you see the normies that have that in real life, and you're like, that doesn't really add up. It's kind of different, so it's a little confusing. But I feel like one of the big things that is across the board stays is, at least in our lifetime, up until the last like 5 to 6 years, the father was to be feared. The father was used as a threat of wait till your father gets home.
Precisely.
Or don't make me tell your father.
Right.
And I feel that that is such a bad thing because what it does is it ends up putting both parties, both the father and the child, at odds, right? Because now the father gets home and is immediately bombarded with, you need to go ahead and be, stern and like against your child, right? And so that's the first interaction they're going to have with their kid that day. That messes with them, right? And then also, the only time that the kid is seeing their father is when they're being yelled at by that person. Doesn't really make you want to have a real strong relationship, right?
Okay.
So those types of thought processes, I think, directly caused the pendulum swing that we're in now, where it's the father can't show any of those types of emotions because they need to make sure that they are being as open and available as what the stereotypical aspect of the mother was in previous time frames, right? It's one of the funny things is, if you looked at when we were in like elementary school, and we didn't really have like homeroom teachers where I came from, but apparently that was a thing, or homeroom parents, sorry.
Right.
There was never a dad. It was always a mom.
Sure.
Because dads were working.
Right.
Right. And so if a dad showed up for like anything, it was like, oh, wow, he's really involved in his family. Like he really cares. That's amazing.
Right.
Where nowadays it's expected a little bit more, but it's still like, oh, wow, it's pretty awesome. Okay, cool. But it's not really fair.
Right.
Because not only is it kind of like, it's not fair to the mother in the sense that if the mother misses one thing, then they're a horrible mother, right?
Sure.
But if the father shows up to one thing, then they're an amazing, because the expectations of a father are super low. They just don't expect a father, they don't expect a man to want to have anything to do with the raising of their own children.
Okay.
I think is this social overall thought process.
All right.
That they feel that the man feels that it's the woman's job to take care of the kids.
Okay.
Which is frustrating because it's not even what we're saying. It's what people are saying that we're saying.
Sure.
We're not saying anything. We're just chilling over here.
Okay.
And so that's really frustrating because in my opinion, I feel that there shouldn't be Like you were saying, like the where it's like it's the kid gets half and half.
Right.
I think that does happen a lot because there's not a unified front,
Sure.
right? It should be a situation of, hey, you want green and I want red. Cool. Let's go in this room with a closed door and we need to hash it out. No matter what our opinions are, when we walk out of this room, we need to be saying the same color. So the kid understands that because that's what's best for the kid. We're the adults. We need to sacrifice to make sure that the kid doesn't have to. And I just don't think that that's happening enough because I feel like there's too many issues of the stereotypical gender roles that people get so caught up in, they can't focus on what is actually important.
Okay. I can see that. I'll give you my opinion. And my opinion is the minority right now in this country. It's the unpopular opinion. I'm more of a traditionalist in that sense. And that you and I will probably disagree on some of this stuff. So I think father needs to be a strong role. I feel it's necessary. I'm not saying they need to be mean and feared only. I do think that there has to be a kindness and but there also has to be that authority. And I think that's when you're looking at the stereotypical societal view of motherhood and fatherhood, naturally, here's the controversial stuff. I know, naturally, mothers are more maternal, in my opinion.
Right. They've been bred to be that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
But they also breastfeed. I mean, it's hormonal also, right? It's proven that most women are more emotional and will provide that more emotional support. Now, I say most. I understand there are exceptions to the rule,
always,
but we have to look at overall, right? When we're looking at these things, right? So it's not all, but overall, I do think that has proven to be the case, not because men say so. It's because I think biology. Okay. I don't think that's controversial.
But doesn't that go against the statistics we were just talking about a minute ago? Where the single father is going to have the best outcome percentage-wise for their children without the more superior maternal parent?
No, because the statistic, as you can recall, is the better outcome is out of the prison system because they're going to be following more structure and rules and laws. It doesn't mean they're going to be psychologically better off. I didn't like in terms of being warm or, accepting of new ideas or whatever it is, but they're going to learn to follow rules better because it's going to be ruled more on logic, less on emotion.
So they're just going to be better citizens.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. That's it. I'm not saying better people. Okay. Right. But out of prisons at following, structure, that way. So, because it's the role that in that case, in that particular study, the role the father has to play is really just to provide, a lane of structure, in that way. I don't know. Once again, I don't know the details of the study. We read the articles. I think my wife and I read the article. Funny enough, I think she may have been the one to find it. I don't know. But I was surprised by that. I had no idea that was good. It was going to say that. But anyway, that kind of diverted. I do think that, there has to be more of a balance than there used to be, where the father was absentee and just would come, get the belt out, whip the kid, and then, go about their business. And then the mother, is the support person. See, I told you, don't upset your father, that kind of thing.
Right.
That's not right. I don't believe in that. And that's not what I mean when it comes to traditional roles. What I'm saying is I do feel that a lot of the structure and guidance should be, there is a head of household. It doesn't mean that women aren't valuable, that women don't play a part, that women can't jump into that role of leader, when the time's appropriate. But if you have a traditional, as you said, nuclear family, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't have two leaders in any situation. You can't have two leaders at once. That has to be that role, that shift of, hey, you have to agree to, in this, I'm going to take the lead in here, and you take the lead in this. There has to be that exchange of leadership when it comes to whatever you're doing. In parenthood, if you're going to say discipline, well, fine. You have to be on the same page, as you said. I can't pull one kid this way and you pull one kid the other way, and they're going to be like, well, where do I go? Which one do I do? Do I do what mom says or what dad says? For that reason, there has to be a way that's either agreed upon. I'm not saying mom and dad have to fight it out and then whomever wins that fight is good, they're going to get their way. But I do think there has to be some type of someone taking control, some level of control to provide structure for the most positive outcome.
Well, see, okay, I understand what you're saying, but the same token, you're talking about there needs to be a head of household.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be the person that is the one that runs the household?
Sure.
Which is typically the woman?
Could be.
And then also, wouldn't it make more sense? Think of it like a company, right?
Yeah.
You might have multiple CEOs.
Sure.
Or a board of directors.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. If they're all saying different things, nothing's going to get accomplished.
Yeah.
So they have a meeting. They come up with whatever the process is going to be moving forward.
Yeah.
And then they release it down to the lower level. The lower level is never involved in the conversation that took place in the boardroom.
Sure.
It's the same thing as mom and dad. They just have a bedroom.
But someone has to have a final say too, I think.
Well, yeah, that's what compromise is. That's what a relationship is.
Yeah.
Is the final say is we finally agreed on one way or the other.
The point that has to happen is there needs to be support from both parties. So they can't be undermining, right?
Right.
You can't go to dad and get your way when mom said, something else, right? It said the other thing, right? So, candy, I want candy,
right.
Oh, I want candy, well, go ask your father. And then your father, like, when the mother expects father to say no, and then father says yes, because it's like, oh, go ask your father. I told you no, and then they run to dad or something like that. And dad says yes. They need to be on the same page when it comes to stuff. That's such a trivial example, but like,
no, but it's an understandable one.
Curfews at night, right? Or something like that. But, it's tough. I find that the more time the child spends with whatever parent it is, they'll probably respect that parent less. Okay. And I think it's just because it's a comfort. It's the constant pushing and testing and making sure that, those boundaries are tested on a regular basis.
No, that makes sense.
You fear the unknown. So if there's someone who's less present in that day to day, and that person comes home, father or mother, and they say something or whatever, then all right, maybe they're not going to get away with it as much because that comfort isn't there. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's a thing. So I, just from my personal experience, with fatherhood, yeah, they push my wife's boundaries. She can tell them 4 or 5 times to do one thing, right? And even sternly, and even like, I am telling you, do this or you are not going, whatever it is, whatever consequence, threat, or bribe. And then I say, hey, drain the tub, you just hear it drain and it goes, right?
No, I mean, they've done the same thing with me.
Right.
Where I've told them to do something and they immediately.
Right. Because it's that fear of the unknown. It's the comfort. It's the, okay, I should do this. And I don't know, good, bad, and different, but then doing that, but then showing love and compassion, still spending time in other ways. I think that's helpful. That wasn't what's been done in the past. It was, you never see dad, he's going to do whatever, and he's whatever.
Yeah, like you're stereotypical, and this is further than like our parents' generation. I think it's like our parents, where it's like, dad has his room, whatever it may be, and when dad goes in that room, dad may be here, but dad's not here.
Sure.
You don't want to disturb dad, because the only time you're going to see dad is if dad is smacking the shit out of you.
Sure.
Or mom.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's out of fear.
Yeah.
Not out of fear of the unknown, but just fear, because that's
fear of the known.
Fear of the known.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
What you're getting is that product that you're receiving is violence.
Yeah. See, like I said, with my opinion on the situation, because I agree with what you're saying as far as the parent that is around the most will be disrespected the most by the child. And it's exactly what you said. It's just like training a dog, because basically a kid doesn't know any better. So it's the same thing. If you tell them to sit and they don't sit, and then you allow that to happen without any repercussion, and then you say sit again, the dog just realized, oh, I don't have to listen to you.
Sure.
It's the same thing with a kid.
Yeah.
And it's bound to happen. Doesn't mean that whichever parent that is around, doesn't mean they're bad at it.
No.
It's just percentages, the law of average.
If they're spending so much time with the child, they wear you down over that period of time.
Of course.
And you're gonna allow more. You're gonna let the leash out a little bit because you're tired of being on top of them all the time. Then they're gonna learn to take advantage, right? Mm-hmm. And those moments of weakness, that's where they really push you, right? And it's tough. So that's why I think, I'm not saying kids, I mean, I was raised without a, father figure in the home, a consistent father figure in the home, right? Similar to you, but I had more of an interchanging father figure
right
in the role. And in that case, you just never had one. But, the one I had for a period of time, also didn't want to intervene heavily in doing that, because that belief was, no, you have a father and I don't want to step in the way, or, so a lot of that wasn't provided. That structure wasn't provided. It was more of a listen to your mother, hands off type thing, because of respect and boundaries and so on and so forth. And it was a tough age and all that stuff. But so there wasn't that happening there. There was someone there, but it wasn't, I wouldn't say that it was the traditional sense at all.
It was like the ghost of someone there. They're there, and they're there, and they might say something. They're probably not. Right. You might see a face. They may not say anything.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So testing those bounds and understanding and it was really it just felt like single motherhood, right? It felt like what it was before, except, as you said, the presence of someone there. So it was pretty interesting. And then even before that, I mean, there was just nothing, right? It was just very inconsistent, and then expectations of people trying to fill that role and do that, maybe going overboard too much in certain cases, and then other ones who were more of the buddy, right? And didn't have any type of authority or, father-like figure presence, in that case. So when it came to, my father, I didn't live with him. Right.
Right.
And what happens, I think, with a lot of fathers is they can't relate to young children sometimes in that sense, where until they reach a certain age and then it clicks where, oh, I can have a conversation with them now. Great. Now I can reason with you. I couldn't reason with you when you were a toddler screaming, crying, and give you what you need in that case, as much as the stereotypical mother in that sense. And I'm speaking of the stereotypical, breastfeeding, nutrients from mom, kind of thing, because I don't have the parts for that,
Right.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, I think kids reach a certain age where then you can speak with them and handle them more logically because you can have a conversation with them. I think the fathers I've spoken with, a lot of them feel a similar way where they have that connection with their kid more so when the kid will start responding to them when, they can start getting to the age of talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying there's no connection before then. Of course, there's going to be a connection. It's not like, all right,
no,
you deal with the kid
I,
until they're this age, and then I'll take over.
Right? No, I didn't think of it like that. I felt a different. I feel that I had a different experience with my kid, but just like we were saying, every situation is different. We're talking about a billion exceptions. You know what I mean? Because every single thing is slightly different. Because like utilizing the same thought process of like when they start to speak. My daughter learned how to speak and could speak quite a lot for a couple of years. And me and her just didn't really communicate that way.
Sure.
We communicated. We just didn't communicate verbally.
Right.
That was just not our thing.
Right.
And then also, I mean, I've never spoken to my child as a child.
Sure.
So, that's also very uniquely different.
Right.
Normal people don't do that, but I'm not normal.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. It was just non-traditional, right? In that sense would be the best way to describe it is, someone would see that and say, oh, what's going on there? Like they wouldn't expect it. Yes.
Oh yeah. People said that. Yeah.
Yeah. but it is like that's the relationship that you've had. Really just, I don't think there's a right or wrong way as long as there's support and involvement.
No, I think that's the key thing there is that there's not a right way and a wrong way. There's the way that works for you and the way that doesn't work for you.
Right.
And I don't mean you as the singular parent, child, or whatever. I mean you guys as like the royal you.
Yeah.
Where it's like whatever works for this conglomerate of humans that is going to get the desired result of everybody being safe and hopefully moderately happy and secure. Cool. Like I said, I think obviously, I think you're a great father, but you do things differently than I would do. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, oh, cool. That's what you guys do. It is what it is.
Sure. Yeah. I would say that in that traditional sense that we were speaking of, I play more on the fear of consequences, not fear dad because he's going to destroy me.
Right.
But fear of consequences. I think fear is useful. I think, I'm not saying I want my kids to be terrified. That's going to be, I don't want to misspeak on that or have people take that out of context, but I do think that there is something to that. It doesn't have to be afraid of me, but afraid of the outcome, right? Like, well, if you don't do that, you just don't get this. And then you stick to it. Yeah. And like, I don't want to not get this, or I don't want to not have my phone or my, whatever it is. I'm trying to relate to older kid now, but, or my iPad or whatever it is.
Mine has had her phone taken away. Yeah.
Right. And it's probably not enjoyable. They probably want that. They probably want to be on, whatever it is,
Unfortunately, she's like me. Yeah. If you give her a string and a washer, she'll be fine for days.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it doesn't, I've tried to express that that's probably not the right way to handle this situation.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, she did get that from me that, yeah, she might be bored. She doesn't care.
Yeah. My mother said the same thing about me. I can always find a way, take away all my toys and I'll find something to play with. Like I'll twiddle my fingers and be fine. Exactly. So I get that too. And I had a tough time listening to my mother and had a problem with that, the authority from her in that sense. We butt heads a lot her as a single mother trying to raise me, and that, that's tough. I do think I would have benefited from a more traditional, like the way I am as a person. And maybe it's because it was shaped that way and I didn't have that. I would have benefited from more of that traditional style of parenting. I don't know. Statistically, they say yes, having the two parents in the household. I mean, and now there's a whole other, what to consider in society now is there is a whole other factor, right? With not even saying father, mother, but like two roles, right? Two parents, you know, in a same-sex relationship or marriage. But I do think, and that's where I'm kind of talking about, someone has to, you just can't be completely equal in every way. People just aren't equal. There's going to be dominant behaviors, whether you're both male, both female, whatever it is. But the people that have those dominant behaviors need to play that part. And those other people, you need to play to strengths and weaknesses in any relationship. Just like the example used for a workforce, you hire a team, there's going to be people that are better at one thing and people that are better at another thing. But you have to kind of come together and build that team and let those people support where they're best.
There may be people that are better at one thing and better at another thing, but both of their voices are still equal.
Yeah.
Well, then there's not a dominant and a submissive in that situation. They're both
this person
equals.
Steps back and lets this person handle this particular area.
In a particular situation, but
Correct.
Overall, they are equal.
It should be.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Respect, there should be respect whenever the mother is being disrespected by the child, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And the father says, respect your mother. You need to respect your mother, blah, 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 and backs up the mother. One person always needs to back up the other one.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever, and those will have to switch, you know, whatever it is.
It's one of those things that the kid has. I'm a very laid back person.
Yeah.
I'm usually really just like, yeah, whatever. But if I get frustrated or I get angry, there's a flip. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I've only had to raise my voice probably like 2 or 3 times to the kid.
Right.
And I did flick her once when she was like 18 months old.
Sure.
And that's all that I've ever had to do with her. Now, mind you, once again, I'm very lucky. That's just the way that this particular child deals. But there have been quite a few times where she has disrespected her mother in my presence. And the second that my voice starts to raise, there is that, oh my God, I'm going to be sacrificed.
Sure.
Look in her eyes.
Right. That's fear.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there's never been an example of what would happen. And there's never been like, there's no trauma behind what causes that fear.
Sure.
It's like you said, the fear of the unknown.
Right.
And it's just, hey, you don't do that. You're nice to your mother. Do you realize all the crap your mother does to take care of you? I don't want to hear you do that. Do what she said. And then as soon as that sentence is done, it's just like, yeah, so tell her what you did today at school. Because it's, okay, we had that conversation. Move on.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying in that regard, where stereotypically, right? Dad is going to mow the yard and mom is going to make dinner. Well, maybe that's not the way that it works in that household.
Right.
Right. And that's perfectly fine. But the same token, they're both going to decide what should be eaten for dinner. And they're both going to decide what they want the outside of the house to look like.
Sure.
And both of their opinions matter equally, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But one will take charge of one particular thing. It's
exactly.
You don't ask your kicker what to do on first down.
Right. That's my point. People have different positions and roles that they play.
And I agree with that.
Play to those strengths.
I agree with that. You put the position player in when they need to be put in. But I also agree that in the team meeting, they're all equal.
They all should have a voice.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And their voice should matter the same amount.
Yeah.
I just don't think that, in my personal experience, I don't see the benefit of one person having the final say. But there again, I haven't been put in the position where that's a necessity.
Sure. Yeah.
It's all about life experience in that situation.
I feel like, yes, there needs to be a leader, whomever that is, but there needs to be someone that I guess directs, mm-hmm. that kind of, like anything else, maybe has a vision. Now they can both agree on that vision, but there's always going to be someone who who can help guide it maybe and keep it on track a little bit and stay. It doesn't mean that that person's solely responsible for doing that though. And I think that's the thing. They both agree on it, but you know, based upon just personality, I mean, there could be two dominant people in a relationship.
Absolutely. Or the opposite.
Or the opposite. And then nothing gets done. Right. So it's so
a shit show.
So right. And it's just one of those things where there has to be someone to take charge finally. You know, you've experienced it in management roles and leadership roles to a point where it's like, you know, all right, this is what we're doing. Right.
Yeah.
And you had to step in and do that and make command decisions. That has to happen. It doesn't mean it shouldn't be at the expense of someone else's opinion or voice.
Correct.
I think that's the main point.
And I think that that's the problem in the societal thought process, is that is what people think happens when the man puts his foot down.
It's looked at as a negative thing all the time.
Because I feel that people are looking at what is happening in that moment and not what is happening maybe before or even after, when the conversation is had between those two adults of,
right,
hey, I didn't like that, or hey, I appreciate the assist, high five.
Right.
You know, for instance, I'm kind of an outgoing person. My ex-wife, not so much.
Sure.
Right. She's a very fun person for the people she likes, but when she's in a room with a bunch of people she doesn't like, it's not her forte.
Right.
That's my job.
Sure.
When people are starting to walk up and introduce, it's my job to kind of do like the, hey, yeah, how's it going? Okay, cool. You don't have to talk. Don't worry about it. Just be quiet. Stay right there.
Right.
Because that's my role.
How dare you?
Right.
How dare you not let her speak and you'd be able to take over. Right?
And some people might think that, where other people that actually know the situation would be like, oh, cool. Yeah. He's helping out because she doesn't have the emotional energy to deal with that right now.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, is that people are too quick to take their own baggage, good, bad, or indifferent,
right,
and place it on top of other people's situations.
Sure.
Before they kind of do any like digging and research of their own, which really shouldn't matter anyway, because that's their crap. So why are you even bothering? But yeah, it is what it is.
That strong, finger quote, strong, authoritative man, someone who seems like they're in control. Those are all words that I'm saying that are like these buzzwords for like, oh, he's abusive. He's going to beat,
toxic masculinity.
It's right. That type of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I it's not true all the time, you know, it's not true half of the time. Okay. Are there certain word tracks and stuff that probably do get used in relationship situations that, you know, you can think that? I just think, once again, as long as it's not at the expense of someone else and then their opinion or, you know, emotional well-being, and it's tough. It's tough when you have a dominant personality to be like, you know what? Sorry. Yes, I took over there. You know, what do you think about this? Right. Because that has to happen too. People aren't perfect. Those dominant personalities, you know, I have a very dominant personality. I can dial back, but like I have a very dominant personality, and I have to consciously say like, okay, hey, maybe that was a little too, you know, forward, or my opinion was a little too strong on that. Sorry about that. What do you think? Like, what do you think we should do? Like, can we just get on the same page? You know, that kind of thing. And, you know, it's okay to have to recenter yourself and kind of readjust, you know, but ultimately the path we're going down, it's going to be decided together, and we have to decide that this is the right way to do it. And yeah, that dominant personality has to consider the feelings and emotions of the other person, whether it be the male or the female in the situation.
Yeah.
You know,
I do think that there is an aspect of people looking at certain characteristics and like mislabeling them.
Sure.
Right? Where like I probably have a dominating personality, but I also have a very lazy personality.
Sure.
And they're constant battle. How much effort do I really want to have to put in right now?
Sure.
If I'm in a situation where I have to, like, nobody else is, man.
Sure.
I can take control of the room and I have no problem doing it. It's just that most of the time I just don't wanna. It just seems like a lot, you know?
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing, is that while I may have the capability and the knowledge and even possibly like the chance for success of doing it, a lot of times it just doesn't seem worth it to me.
Sure.
Right. So because of that, I feel like there are situations that I'm put in where I get to kind of sit back and watch the other people play around at it.
Right.
And it's really amusing, right? Because it's like you're a bunch of chickens with your head cut off running around here making these thought processes. Going to school functions, oh, buddy, buckle up. You're going to want to kill people.
Yeah.
Because it is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How many times have you gone to see the kid do like her swim stuff and you wanted to strangle somebody just as much as I did?
Yep.
Because it wasn't organized? Oof. So I'm right there with you as far as like, you need to have people that like, this is their ring, right? And they know this and they need to take charge of this situation. But I think that a lot of times when you see a personality that is a confident, in charge, not domineering in the traditional sense of like, you know, putting people down is what people usually think of domineering, which isn't fair, but you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It is usually a man.
Sure. And
a lot of people more recently have started to look at that similarly to how historically, a lot of weird words here, people look at a woman in that position where it's like, he's assertive, she's a bitch.
Right.
That used to be the narrative.
Well, the word's Karen now, right?
Right.
You're going to speak up.
Absolutely.
And you're going to, can I speak to your manager type?
Yeah.
You know, and you're going to stand your ground. That's looked at as a negative thing. I think 100%, like anything else, it's approach, it's how you do it. And
Absolutely.
it's how you're able to do that and then still stay in control in some sense of your emotions in the situation.
Right. But, and I agree with that 100%. But what I was getting to was that now the Karen thing's still there.
Yeah.
It's just now we have a title as well, which is the toxic masculinity.
Sure.
So if a guy is trying to help out in a situation, regardless of what it is, if he uses any type of force, not physical, maybe just projecting his voice or making, not demands, because it sounds like I'm trying to be forceful, but like
taking control
of the situation. Hey, right. I really need you to help me out and do this. And would you mind doing that? Even if you're using words of asking, right? Some people are still going to be much more than before. Just thinks he's so important, you know, and it's just because the narrative has slightly changed, which makes it more frustrating because that ties along with the whole like struggling with the new notions of manhood.
Well, it gives birth to the mansplaining, you know, narrative where if you're trying to be calm and instead of assertive or controlling, if you're trying to calmly explain your point, then now you're mansplaining.
Right.
So it's a little bit tough, you know, in that role as well. And now we're talking less about fatherhood, but more about like relational aspects here, like men in society.
No,
but
because the reason why I think those are connected is because those things are being looked at from the child.
Yeah.
And the perception the child has is what is going to affect the future.
Yeah, it's going to shape how they should be as future parent,
which is the whole job of a father and mother is to do those things. Just so that we're not like going for 10 years because we could keep going.
Yeah.
I just want to wrap up and I'll have you do the same thing here where there's a couple of things that I feel that should be the expectation of a father, right? And they're very simplistic things. They should be providing a safe place for their offspring to be able to develop into the people they are going to become, regardless if it is going to be somebody that the parent wants them to be or not. In this case, it's the father. And it's their job to make sure they're protecting them. Right. They need to help provide for them. They need to make sure that they are as good as they can be because no one's ever going to be able to make them perfect.
Sure.
They do need to be emotionally available. I do believe in that, especially you're screwed. You have a son. Because it's very important, I think, for nowadays, especially a man to teach a young boy who will become a man the duality of being a man.
Correct.
That there are times that you need to be there as an emotional wreck, and there's times that you need to be there as a completely emotional being.
Right.
And both of those extremes are okay. You just have to learn when to wear which hat, you know?
Yeah.
So to me, that's the biggest thing. Like, the kid and I, yeah, we're buddies. Yeah, we're cool. We're awesome. But the same token, it's the same thing when I was a manager. I'm your friend until you make me have to be your CO.
Right.
The second you make me be that person, I'm going to be that person. It's your choice.
Right.
We can chill, we can hang out as long as your homework's done, your room is clean, and you've done everything that your mom has asked you to do.
Yeah.
Now, if I find out later that you didn't do something, and that when I asked you, hey, did you do everything you were supposed to do? And you're like, oh, I just forgot. Yeah, you get one freebie. After that, I am not going to be fun for a while. Because I'm going to be like, are you sure? Let's go check it. Because my level of checking is going to be way worse than anything else. Out of pettiness.
Right.
Because I want there to be a disciplinary reaction. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, I'm going to keep going, so I'm going to shut up. But that is where I feel like my opinion on what the father's role should be.
Yeah.
But what are your closing thoughts?
I agree. I agree with most of that. I do think that it is harder for you and I, or people that didn't have the traditional example of a father, right? Whether or not it's a good example or a bad example, just having an example that's a consistent example, that's like, hey, this is how this, because then you can either learn from the things that they didn't do that maybe you were thinking you did. Now, I'm not saying you're going to turn out any better one way or another. Statistically, yes, it shows that people turn out better, but just because it's an extra layer of support if it's a positive situation. That person could be the one ripping down the family, and then that becomes a negative thing, right? But we're thinking best case scenario in a traditional sense, right? The presence of that balance in some way, and how that balancing act, that teeter-totter, right? And those roles are switched. And that's done with that communication. I think it's not going to be perfect because there's no relationship that is, there's no family that is. But to at least have that other person to go to in that time where they're feuding, mom and kid are feuding, and maybe dad's there, and maybe dad is just well, that's what happens when you do this with your mom or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be authoritative. Or when that time does happen, it's like, I'm really disappointed because, the way you spoke to your mother or whatever it is, like, right. And mom does the same thing, and just kind of having that more of that balance rather than it's all kid and mom, or kid and dad, whatever that is. I do think that it's more supportive and helpful because you said support, and that's an important thing. What better than to have two people to be able to support who might have a different perspective and different point of view during a certain conversation or time where agitation's high with one parent in a certain moment, where they can switch off and say, hey, take this kid because it's not happening today for me, or which in my situation happens sometimes, all the time. But yeah, I do think that balance is there. So without to speak to personally, kind of on behalf of both of us, to have that constant example, that consistent example, I think would help. We have to try to decide how we want to be or how we act or react. You know what I mean? To our children, and then what kind of father we want to be, right? And that's tougher because without that consistent example there, then where are we, right? Like we're going off of theory. We're going off of right? Fatherhood theory.
The worst thing about the situation, this is not a one-upsmanship thing because I'm the one who's actually losing here, is that you at least have things to measure against.
Sure. Yes.
The second that I learned what my daughter's favorite food was at the age of like 1.5, I already surpassed mine, which sounds great.
Right.
I have no form of measurement.
Right.
And I know you don't either in that regard. Like I said, I'm not trying to like murmur.
Yeah,
I'm trying to add on to like what you're saying.
I do 100%. It just
sucks.
wasn't consistent for me.
Right. It sucks because I don't think that there's a person that is capable of introspect. Am I saying the right word?
Sure.
Of being able to self-reflect that thinks they're killing it at all the time.
No.
Right. And so the problem is that when you get into those moments where you're just like, hey, man, how am I doing? I need to, self-evaluate, make sure I'm on the right levels with that. When you're having to compare yourself to TV dads,
right,
that had a script.
We all saw that episode of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Uncle Phil and
but
Will.
It's a
yeah.
It sucks, man,
yeah,
because I don't think that there's ever a time frame that a parent should feel that they have done everything right. If they feel that, then I'm happy for them. But I don't think that's ever possible.
No.
You're supposed to fail, even as a parent, as the person in charge. You're supposed to freaking fail because that's how you learn.
If not daily, weekly, there's something that I'm like, yep, I wish I did that.
Yeah, and you got to be like, my bad.
Yep.
That's on me. Nope. I should have asked. Nope. I know that you're the one that normally takes care of that, and I didn't even think to ask you what the plan was. Bad.
Exactly.
But
it's being present when it matters. It's being it's being there. I think just as kind of what you just said, like abandoning altogether the responsibility. It's different when you're just maybe not great at certain things, but you're still around, versus abandoning the responsibility altogether.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. So really, I think the answer is expectations of a father is to be present.
Be there.
Be there.
Be there with an open mind and trying your damnedest.
Yeah.
As long as you're actually trying,
yeah,
you're still going to mess up.
Yeah.
But you're probably going to succeed even by accident a couple of times.
Right.
And it's funny, the stuff that the kid has already expressed that mean a lot, that it happened during the time frame of how old yours is.
Sure.
That she remembers as being like this crazy thing. And it was just like, really?
Exactly.
Huh. Because the stuff that they're going to remember, the stuff that I remember as a kid, it's never the same things that the parent remembers.
Never. Not at all.
And that's kind of cool, but it's also kind of terrifying.
Yep.
And I think you have to kind of be accepting the fact that as a father, parent probably, but definitely as a father I can speak on. Yeah, man, it's frightening sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yeah. Now I will say, closing thoughts here for the record, my father, I love so much, and I know he loves me. And, it's a situation where because of the inconsistency of the living situation, I just didn't happen to see the day in, day out, what it's like to, and experience that. Right. But he was there, and, I did see him, and there was, that kind of thing. So I did, as you were saying before, it just wasn't a day-to-day thing. It was, we did the whole visitation stuff and, and all that. So it was just a tougher situation. And, every parent wants the ideal situation, but you know what? It's even worse having a mother, father, or parenting situation that is not constructive at all, and they don't get along. Then you're really in a toxic situation, right?
Yeah. So
I would rather have part-time situation than a toxic full-time both parent situation.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's
yeah, it's crazy, and I can speak for you. I will speak for you. you know, the relationship you have with your daughter is awesome. You know, I can see the way she looks at you, the way she responds to you, the way, and it's pretty amazing. So like, you know, you didn't have that example of a father to actually see and be around, and you know how you are with your kid. The fact that you guys had the relationship that you have, even at her age now, and you have their whole life, really, it's a very consistent relationship, you know,
which is weird too. Like, don't get me wrong, I know it's weird too.
Yeah, no, but it's I look at it in awesome times. It's like, that's so cool, because really it is just how you guys interact is, yes, it's non-traditional, but like the love is amazing, right? Yeah. And it feels like that closeness you have is an unspoken thing. It's not the traditional, oh, daddy, I love you, daddy, because that's not her personality.
No.
You know what I mean? It's interesting. But she'll come up to you and then elbow you or hit you, and it's like this unspoken, you know. It's
the same things that used to annoy you when we were teenagers.
Yes.
I taught to my kid.
Exactly. But it's really cool. And, you know, for you not to have, as I said, that example of fatherhood, and then how you are as a father, I mean, you know, it just kind of defies the odds in that sense, which is cool, you know?
I appreciate it. No, it's I'm like, what, 6 years ahead of you, kid wise,
father wise. Yeah.
It's still frightening.
Yeah.
But it's also really cool, especially when sarcasm is understood. Oh, yeah. You're gonna love that.
Yeah.
And I will say this, you know, not to try to, like, you know, give you a little circle right back at you, but the same token, where you're at now, you're gonna get some really cool stuff when you get to where I'm at. Yeah. Because the relationships are really awesome. You know what I mean? The closeness and the level of communication is really cool to see. And you know, I can't speak on your son too much because I don't have a son.
Sure.
And it wasn't in my cards. But as having a daughter, I think that relationship is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I think you're stepping in the right direction. And it's really fun when they start talking back.
Oh, it's already happened.
No, I mean like with like supporting details.
Yeah, it's happening already.
Oh yeah.
It's scary how much it's happening. And I'm like, I can't, when she's older, I don't know what's going to happen, because she is so sassy already right now. And like giving examples too, like, you know, of her, like she just, you know, Dad, I told you that's not how you should, you know. I'm like, what are you saying to me, 4-year-old? Because literally 4 years old, and she's like giving examples and then citing from past experience stuff. I'm like, I can't with her already. It's insane.
See, we were still in the like non-auditory communication stage at 4, so I didn't have to deal with any of that.
My daughter, you know how she is. She's very emotional.
Yeah.
So and she's very outspoken, and she talks a lot.
No idea where she got it.
So it's one of those situations where, her and I, sometimes, but no, I mean, it's awesome. It's the best thing in the world. I really do. I mean, I think that's the purpose of life, is to exist, and is to continue to perpetuate and you know, raise our children to then be productive members of whatever society you choose to be a part of.
No, I agree.
You know,
the overall success will be like, you know, do they enjoy their life? And
that's it.
That's really all it comes down to.
I don't measure success by what job they have, or you know, how much they make, or just, are they happy? You know,
yeah,
that's really.
Did they kill anybody today?
That's what I mean. Like, are they decent?
But did that person deserve it?
Well, that too, you know? Yeah.
Sometimes you got to know when to pull the cord.
You know? But decent human beings, right?
Moderately decent.
No.
You're shooting really high. I'm going for, like, you know, not serial killer. don't have a documentary on Netflix, and we're probably going to be okay.
I'm going for like do the right thing in the moment where it matters. Like that would be okay. That would be
Protect at least one friend and shank a different one.
Yeah.
And then we're fine.
Right.
Yeah.
If you got to shank an enemy to protect a friend, and you're okay. You're good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, done.
100%.
Yeah.
If I could get her to believe that, it sucks so bad. She's too nice. I don't know how the heck she got that.
I don't know either.
I know.
That is
yeah.
Not inherited from you.
Not at all.
Not at all.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up there because, like I said, we could keep going, especially when we started talking about our own.
Yeah.
But we do want to say thanks for listening to the Venti Questions podcast, and we hope you enjoyed our opinions on what the expectations for us is.
It's tough to lay them out without then feeling like you're going to be critiqued and judged.
Oh, absolutely. But I think that was the majority of the beginning of the conversation, is just trying to figure out where we stand and what other people's opinions of what we should be are.
Yeah.
So,
and even just through experience of us doing it, we're probably going to shift in our style.
Oh, every time there's a new fun thing, we change our minds on it. But if you enjoy our opinions on this and you want to hear our opinions on other stuff, make sure you tune in next week when we will be talking about AI.
Yeah.
And all of that kind of extremely exciting and terrifying funness.
Right. Artificial intelligence.
Yeah. Sorry. I figured you were not like an idiot. So my bad.
Well, that's why.
That's why you're here. You help us out.
We have to, because
you tell them when they're dumb, and I just talk to the other people.
Well, it's just, artificially intelligent. Sometimes we have to.
You got to pump them up somehow.
There's a reason we're building it because
they're idiots.
Not all.
No, not you guys. No. The ones that click the subscribe button and the little bell notifications and then put a comment in there. Yeah, you're the smart ones.
Those are the intelligent ones.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anywho, also, if you want to check us out on social media, be able to follow up how Coin Car Grand Prix is going. Make sure you're checking us out on Venti_questions on Twitter, and then also on Instagram at Venti Questions. And then if you want to find out more about this particular coffee per se, or maybe even what we thought about Black Adam, by the way, it sucked, go ahead and check out our YouTube channel over at youtube.com/@VentiQuestions.
We weren't the only ones that it sucked.
No, apparently so did DC. Screw you, Rob. And with that, have a great day.